Game development explained. No theory, just what works.
Have you ever been on a project that just goes sideways? You know, it starts out with this crystal clear plan, a solid goal, and then slowly but surely it ends up late, way over budget, and looking nothing like what you originally set out to do. Well, today we're going to dig into why that happens. And here's a spoiler. It's almost certainly not because you're a bad planner.
Right? This is the question that keeps us up at night. You spend all this time making these beautiful roadmaps, breaking down every little task, getting all the estimates just right, and still the whole thing just veers off course. It is so frustrating. But what if the real cause isn't some big, obvious mistake? Exactly. We always look for that one big moment of failure, that one executive decision or that huge technical blunder that we can point to and say, that's what did it. But the truth is, projects almost never die from a single gunshot. They die from 1,000 tiny little paper cuts. So what are these tiny cuts? Well, according to producer and writer Leszek Lasowski, whose work we're diving into today, the real villain is something much sneakier. He calls it a series of micro yeses. These are all those small, totally reasonable agreements we make every single day that just pile up and, well, eventually sink the ship. And this is the most important idea we're going to talk about today. We have to completely reframe how we see this. Stop blaming the plan. Stop blaming the people who made the plan. The actual problem is in the system itself. It's a workflow issue that lets all these little requests sneak in and become real commitments before anyone has made a single conscious decision. Yeah, this slide just lays it out perfectly. On the one hand, you've got what we all think is the problem. We think it's about planning, so our gut reaction is to double down. We need more details, better estimates, more tickets. But the reality is that it's a workflow problem. Our day-to-day systems make it way easier to just say yes and add one more thing than it is to pause and have a tough conversation about priorities. And this workflow problem leads to something the source calls silent adoption. Honestly, this is the big bad guy of our story. A request just kind of shows up. Someone makes a ticket for it. Maybe a stakeholder casually mentions they're expecting it. And bam! All of a sudden, it's treated as if it's part of the plan. No one ever voted on it. No one signed off on a trade-off. It just became real. So how does this silent adoption actually play out in the real world? Well, it happens through these little micro yeses. It's the language of being a helpful, polite teammate, but when you string these agreements together, they are absolutely lethal to your project's timeline. It always starts so innocently, doesn't it? A teammate, a stakeholder, they make what seems like a totally reasonable request. And hey, we want to be helpful, right? We're team players. So we say, sure, and that's the first micro yes. And here's the classic justification. We tell ourselves, we tell everyone else, oh, it's just a small thing. It won't take long. This is how we avoid having that harder conversation about what this small thing is going to push out of the way. It feels like we're being nice, but what we're really doing is hiding a scope change. And then a little pressure gets added to the mix. Maybe it's not an official requirement in any document, but there's an expectation. This kind of vague pressure makes it even harder to push back or even question the change. And just like that, with a couple of casual conversations and zero formal decisions, that change gets silently adopted. Every individual step felt reasonable, but the result is a brand new commitment your team never actually agreed to. And your milestone just got a little heavier, a little further away.
And the cost of not having that one crucial conversation is just massive. It's not just about a little extra work. The real price is the foundation of your project slowly crumbling, all because we didn't force ourselves to say that one simple project-saving sentence. So what does this mess look like? I bet some of these symptoms feel painfully familiar. You're constantly reshuffling priorities. You've got dozens of half-finished projects. Urgent new requests are always blowing up the plan. You're stuck in endless alignment meetings where nothing ever gets decided. This is the chaos that happens when the plan you wrote down has nothing to do with reality anymore.
I just love this quote because it's so true. It perfectly captures what happens. Your beautifully crafted roadmap becomes a historical artifact. It's a museum piece. You can look at it, you can admire it, but it has zero connection to what people are actually working on. It's a fossil.
All right, so enough doom and gloom. How do we fix this? Well, the solution isn't some complex new project management software. The source argues the fix is actually kind of boring, and that's why it works so well. It's not about trying to move faster. It's about being cleaner and more deliberate with how we make decisions. It's all about decision hygiene.
So here it is, a super simple Three-step loop. First, you force clarity. That means you write the proposed change down in one single, clear sentence. No ambiguity. Second, you name an owner. One person is responsible for getting to a final decision. And third, you force the decision itself by making the trade-offs totally explicit and visible to everyone.
And that third step is where the magic really happens. It's built on this powerful idea, the swap. A swap means you're not just saying yes or no. You're saying, okay, yes, we can do this new thing. And to make that possible, we are all consciously agreeing to either remove or delay this other thing. This is what makes the cost of that small change real. This line just nails it. If you accept a new piece of work without swapping something out, you aren't being agile, you're not being flexible, you are just politely setting your team up for failure one yes at a time. The swap is your best defense against chaos.
So what does this actually look like day to day? Well, here is a ridiculously simple tool you can literally start using tomorrow. You don't need a big meeting to roll it out. It's just about creating a tiny moment of friction that forces an actual decision.
Look at this. This little template is the gatekeeper, and the format doesn't matter, right? It could be in Slack, it could be on a sticky note. What matters are the fields. You state the change in one sentence, you name the decision owner, and you force a clear decision, which most importantly includes the option to swap. This tiny bit of process turns a vague, floating request into a concrete choice.
And let's not gloss over that decision owner field. That thing is so important. Because a change request without a clear owner, that's a trap. It's a ghost task that everyone works on a little bit, but no one is truly responsible for, so it just drifts forever. Assigning a single owner is what prevents that from happening.
Now, if you're thinking, this sounds like it's going to slow us down, this slide is for you. True speed isn't about running around frantically. True speed comes from clarity. Taking a tiny pause to write something down and force a real decision is what prevents weeks of confusion and rework later on. That is what real velocity looks like. So I'll just leave you with this to think about. The very last time you said yes to a small change, what was the invisible thing that got cut? Because there's no free lunch. A trade-off was made. Something else got less of your time, less focus, or just didn't get done at all. The only question is whether you make that choice on purpose or you just let reality make it for you.
If this is useful, subscribe.
New breakdowns every week.